What is a muscle knot or a trigger point? A muscle knot is a spot in the muscle itself where the muscle fibers are contracted. That means this section of the muscle, not the whole muscle, but just this section of the muscle, has muscle fibers that are on. They are active, they're contracting, they haven't fully relaxed. And this section of the muscle can stay contracted and can stay on for decades. Oftentimes, these muscle knots will develop as a result of a muscle being used too much or being used without having it be relaxed. Once that muscle stays, gets contracted or is used for too long of a period of time, then the muscle just decides, okay, I guess I'm supposed to stay on, and I'm supposed to stay contracted. And so then it just stays knotted up. It just stays tight. It just stays on. And this can happen in a particular section of the muscle or a bigger section of the muscle, or maybe even the whole muscle as a whole. And this particular knot will stay like that. So the body starts to recognize that maybe it needs to protect itself, or maybe, this is an area of the body that is going to just stay on all the time. A good example of that is, people who are using their arms a lot and they're typing with their arms out in front of them all day, the muscles here in their upper shoulder area are on. They have to be on to prevent the shoulders from falling off forward. And so that tension over time, if you're doing that for hours and hours on end, that muscle will just become a knot. It'll just stay on and it won't turn off. And what happens when we have these muscle knots is that the knot, because it's an area that's contracted, it's squeezing all the blood vessels that go through the muscle. So we have these little blood vessels that go through the muscle itself. And when a muscle is contracted, it's squeezing the blood vessels. So it's like squeezing a hose. It's preventing the circulation from coming through. And the reason that's important is that the circulation is what comes in and brings nutrients to the muscle and makes the muscle feel vital and healthy. And it also is what takes away toxins and byproducts of contraction. And so if we don't have that bringing in new nutrients and cleaning out the gunk, then a bunch of toxins and extra minerals kind of start to fill in this area, and it becomes kind of like a swamp. It becomes kind of thick and viscous, and it just stuck. And the other interesting thing is that some of those calcium deposits and mineral deposits that get stuck in that muscle knot actually further cause the muscle to contract even more. So then it just solidifies that state of contraction and then have that muscle knot in the body. And so really the way to release the tension in a muscle knot is through either introducing something that brings a lot of circulation into the area. So some examples of that might be massage. It might be heat, because heat expands the blood vessels. So various forms of heat. That could be a hot pack. It could be, being in a sauna. It could be being in a hot tub. It could be using a class 4 therapeutic laser, ultrasound. All these things that help to kind of get heat into the area. That can help to bring in some circulation to the muscle knot, help to clear out some of those mineral deposits, and help to then allow that muscle more of a chance to relax. So that's one thing that works fairly well. But most optimally is a technique that's called a pressure release or a trigger point release. And I'll get to that in one moment, but I do want to clarify what the term trigger point really means. So trigger point is a muscle knot. It's a muscle knot that I described that's an area of the muscle that's contracted. Someone who has a skilled hand can feel in a muscle and find where these knots live. A trigger point is special in that when you press on that particular knot, whether it's with your finger or with a tool, that pressure causes a pain to trigger somewhere else. So say, for example, we use this muscle here. If I have a knot in this upper trapezium muscle, and it's a trigger point, and I press on that trigger point, it might hurt right where I'm pressing. And that's fairly likely. But it also could refer or trigger pain to come up to my head and could be giving me a headache. And so trigger points are important because oftentimes we have pain in certain areas of the body that it's not really that part of the body. So if in this example, it's not really something wrong with my head or something that's going on with my head, it's actually coming from this muscle. And so, how we were talking about using heat to release how to release the tension in muscle knots. Another technique is using a pressure release. And Travell and Simons have written volumes on trigger points, and they're really the experts. And their technique involves putting prolonged pressure on a muscle. So this is different than, massaging a muscle or rolling on a muscle or rubbing a muscle, or even doing cross-friction massage or ART. All of those things are useful techniques, but they're not necessarily designed to release muscle knots and to release trigger points. The technique that works the best is to take and find that knot and put prolonged pressure on that particular spot. And the prolonged pressure at first will cause pain right where you're pressing. It'll be sore. And it will also, if it's a trigger point, cause a referral pain that will go somewhere else. So say, for example, I'm pressing here on my shoulder, it's causing pain here. Now, the key to this technique is prolonged pressure. You can't just press on it for a few seconds and then be done, because in fact, that actually can activate a trigger point. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But really what you want to do is you want to find that spot and you want to hold it, for maybe 5 minutes, as long as it takes for the pain that's referring, so this pain in my head, to go away or to go mostly away. And trigger points can refer lots of places. This one might be referring down my arm. There's certain patterns that we oftentimes see in the body. There are some predictability to that. But you want to hold it consistently, not rubbing it, not moving it, but holding it consistently to allow that trigger point to release. And what that's doing is it's actually affecting the brain. It's telling the brain that it can actually choose to let go of the tension in this muscle. It's chosen to hold tension in this muscle because of whatever, maybe it's been overused, like we talked about, maybe it's been traumatized, maybe there's been some sort of stress, and the brain has said, okay, we need to keep this muscle contracted. And when you do this pressure point release, it tells the brain that it can now allow that muscle to relax. So that's key. If we don't change that pattern, we got to retrain the body. We got to retrain the muscle to do something different. And I did just want to go back to mentioning the latent or the activating a trigger point. So there's two kinds of trigger points. There's ones that are latent, which means that you feel fine, you're just going about your day, you don't notice any pain, but then someone goes and presses you on that muscle knot, and you're like, whoa, gosh, yeah, that's sore. I didn't even know that was sore. And then all of a sudden you're feeling the pain refer up into your head. And you're like, whoa, I didn't even know that was there. So it's called latent because it's not active. It's just kind of below the surface, waiting to be activated. Now, say I go in and, I start rubbing, I start massaging this trigger point. That could actually activate the trigger point. And an active trigger point is one which is causing a referral pain, so causing this referral pain to the head without me touching it. So it's just active right now, and it's causing, I have a headache, I'm not touching it, I'm not pressing on it, but it's active and it's creating that referral pattern. Now, if I go and press on that muscle, it'll make it, more intense. I could probably feel that referral more intense. And as I hold it for a longer period of time, it's going to lessen and lessen and deactivate that particular trigger point. So I hope this helps you to understand a little bit more about what a tight muscle is and what trigger points are and how to address them.